Joaquin Buckley just won his first ever main event. He improved his record to 6 wins in a row at his new weight class of welterweight, and he is very quickly becoming somebody that we need to talk about for getting a title shot. My name is Angelo. This is We Want Picks, and I'm going to recap the entire UFC Tampa fight card. Before we talk about the fights, let's talk about the bets. Overall, they were couple of really cool highlights we'll talk about in a second, but the totals, the magical totals were minus 2%. So we lost $29. I lost $18.82. Jacob lost $10.27. But if we zoom out and focus on the successes, we will see that the safety parlay has hit 9 of the last 10. The safety parlay continues to be the beacon of stability. 9 of the last 10. This card was wild. There was just upsets left and right. I haven't done the total yet, but there was 13 fights. I would not be surprised if more underdogs than favorites won up and down this card. We weren't even safe from round lines. Fights were going to decisions that should have been finishes, and fights that should have been to a decision were getting finished. It was an insane card top to bottom. So luckily, we avoided all the landmines and still managed to find the safety parlay, the beacon of stability in this space. 9 of the last 10, I cannot believe that happened. I was literally jumping up and down, cheering. I was so pumped. We'll talk about it when we get to the individual fights. I was sweating the first leg. Second leg felt real good till that third round got kind of dicey. But either way, safety parlay does its thing. A 69% ROI on one single bet. And if we zoom out even farther, we look at the last 15 fight cards, 1-5. You'll see that we have a 24% ROI. 24% ROI spread out over 15 cards is absolutely insane, especially in this ridiculously volatile sport of UFC. You can check out all the picks and the bets and the tools and everything else for UFC Vegas 101, which is after the jump. They are up there right now. We have the best DraftKings ownership projection on the planet as well for UFC Tampa. If you are a DraftKings fantasy guy and you use these ownership projections, well, you're welcome. Our margin of error was 2.7% on this fight card. The next closest wasn't even in the same digit. DraftKings ownership projections have been a high point this entire year. Week in and week out, we have the best ones, and we are quite proud of that. I'm also proud of the fact that I'm way ahead of the game. I have UFC Vegas 101 completely broken down. If you're a premium member, go ahead and check out the raw notes. Every single fight, broken down all the details with the picks. Check out the website. You'll see the picks, the bets, and everything else for UFC Vegas 101 ready to go. I have 3 units on the board. It's actually spread out over 4 bets, but 3 units on the board for UFC Vegas 101 with obviously many more to come. You can check out all of those bets and everything else we do inside of the app. We released an app last week. It has well over 1,000 downloads already, so thank you guys. You guys are eating it up. Just go to the iOS App Store, search We Want Picks, bang, there's the app. You can do everything from the website inside the app. Look at the picks, look at the bets, use the tools, everything you want or need. Check out the app. Become a premium member as well. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. It's only $10, and there's no such thing as breaks. The fact that I am filming this at 1 o'clock in the morning should tell you that. The fact that tomorrow morning, I will wake up after almost no sleep and break down the entire UFC Vegas 101 fight card. Should tell you that. No such thing as breaks. If you are a premium member, you have full access to every single bet that we will be placing over the next couple of weeks. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. Let's talk about the actual fights. Right off the rip, big underdog got it done. And when I broke down this fight, we talked about it. I said Pereira Rodriguez can absolutely win this fight. And I'm going to place that plus 3.5 bet. She's a pretty big underdog. That plus 3.5 will be even money, maybe even minus money. But that bet never dropped. The bookies were onto it. They never dropped the bet. Jacob pulled the trigger. He bet on her straight up as a dog. And it looked like a phenomenal bet. I mean, she just came forward, was a bulldog, and just absolutely big sister Josefine Knutsson. That's all it was. Throwing big and crazy on the feet, dragging her to the ground, getting the takedown, just bullied her, beat her up, and bullied her. And we always thought Pereira Rodriguez could do that. I also thought Josefine might be able to manage the distance, manage the range. The problem is she clearly doesn't fight as well when somebody's just charging forward, bombing away. So anytime we get somebody as aggressive as a Pereira Rodriguez, we definitely need to keep that in mind. You're fighting a good technical striker. they may not do well with the chaos, with what you bring to their face. So Pereira Rodriguez, great win for her. Solid bet for Jakey Boy and everybody else that bet on her as an underdog. Josefine Knutsson, well, there goes that undefeated record of hers. And until you can defend the takedowns or circle out or deal with the chaos, it's going to be a problem. Go check out what Manel Kopp did, and we'll break down that fight in a little bit. That was a masterclass on how to deal with chaos. His opponent was coming forward swinging crazy, and he dealt with it, didn't panic, buttoned it up nice and neat, no issues whatsoever. Obviously, both these women are pretty early in their careers, lots of growing to do, but Pereira Rodriguez opened up this fight card as a dog, got it done in very dominant fashion. Next fight off the rip was Davey Grant getting it done also as an underdog. This fight was a little bit frustrating because Ramon Taveras had some success. He absolutely 100% could have won this fight. A lot of people were saying that Ramon did win the fight. It was a bad decision. I disagree. I think this was the correct decision. I even bet on Ramon. So no bias from me whatsoever. I would be screaming, yelling, and pretending, oh, I got robbed. Oh, that bet should have hit. Let's pretend it hit, guys. No, this was Davey Grant's win because he danced around. He was the Energizer Buddy. He was super busy, and he got it done. Just touch, 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 move. Touch, 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 move. Not one single strike from Davey Grant had any power on it whatsoever. None. My daughter could eat those strikes, but it didn't matter because when you're landing 2-1, when you're landing clean and getting out of there, when you're the one who's busier, it just looks good. And Ramon Taveras dropped Davey Grant one time. I forget if it was in the first round or the second, but he dropped him one time. And from that point forward was like, I can do it again. I can do it again. Just bombing away. And he could not, in fact, do it again. Ramon Taveras only has himself to blame here. That's it. You're mad at this loss. You only have yourself to blame. You fought an old man who is not dangerous and did nothing. Yeah, you threw some strikes here and there. He was landing the harder strikes. But again, if you're getting completely out-volumed, if you're getting backed up, if this dude is doing literal laps around you, how do you expect those judges to score that fight? So Ramon Taveras, you did it to yourself. You lost to an old man who's not dangerous. You deserve to lose. I mean, it just is what it is. If you don't go out there and fight your ass off, that's what happens. Davey Grant doesn't have an athletic bone in his body, doesn't hit hard at all, has no incredible skills, right? He's not fast. He's nothing. But he works hard and he fights like a man. He goes out there, uses what he has to the best of his abilities. He's never the harder hitter in the cage. He's never the faster guy in the cage. He's never the strongest guy in the cage. But in this case, despite not being any of those things, he won the fight because he worked his ass off, stayed busy, and used his skills while Ramon Taveras wanted to look cool, tried to land the big one, and ultimately lost to an old man. That's what you get. Then we had the first leg of the safety parlay, Miranda Maverick. Let's keep in mind, obviously she was quite expensive come fight night, but keep in mind, I am weeks ahead. So premium members, you see the safety parlay 1 week. Sometimes it's much closer to fight night, but you see the safety parlay a week ahead of time. You get the breakdowns early. You get that information early. So when I picked Miranda Maverick and I bet on her, she wasn't very expensive. It was like -3 something, I believe. And I said, that makes a lot of sense because all I can do is look at the previous fights and look at the tape and break it down. And looking at the previous fights, well, Jamey-Lyn Horth can't really defend a takedown, can she? But then in this fight, she did defend the takedowns, and it was a little dicey. Seemed like a correct decision to me. Made sense. Miranda Maverick won the first round. Miranda Maverick won the third round, and she lost the second round. That made sense to me. So I was okay with that scorecard. But I got nervous in the second round because when Miranda was struggling to take Jamey down, it wasn't a great look. Then Jamey took her back. Luckily, Miranda traded back exchanges, and she ended up on Jamey's back, and all was good in the world, and we could take a deep breath and relax. But the reality is this was a lot closer than it should have been. But if we zoom out and we look at it for what it is, I would not say, oh, Miranda's overrated, her takedowns suck. What I would say is Jamey is humongous. She is absolutely tremendous. You can kind of see from this picture the size difference. Look at where her head is versus hers. And she's leaning down. Jamey-Lyn is absolutely humongous. And the success that Miranda was not having was against the cage. Because against the cage, Jamey was using it well, spreading her body, doing all of those things really, really well. The takedown that Miranda got, insanely clean in the third round, was in the middle of the octagon, not near the fence. And I think we need to see an evolution in this sport. Because what's happened over the last 10 years is everybody's takedown defense against the cage has gotten very good. It is hard to take people down against the cage. Very hard. And we've also seen a lot of people who are not actual wrestlers. We've seen them shoot takedowns, but it always ends up against the cage. Because even if they shoot in the middle of the mat, they don't cut a corner, they don't run the pipe, they don't transition. They just sort of hit a leg, run, you end up against the cage, and everybody's there. So takedowns are starting to suck in the UFC because everybody is good at defending against the cage, and it is quite hard to finish a takedown against the cage. But if we look at the people who get beautiful takedowns, and it's not really a concern, people like Hamzat, he shoots from 1.5 miles away, but he's not getting you to the cage. He's grabbing the ankle. He's grabbing the leg. He's picking you up. He's staying in the middle of the octagon, and that's a wild example because he might literally be the best wrestler. Not accomplishment-wise, because that'll be Bo Nickel for now, but he might literally be the best wrestler active on the roster. But that's because he shoots in the middle of the cage. Miranda Maverick had success shooting in the middle of the cage. And this became a cage wrestling rant. But the point is, Miranda Maverick needs to lean on that wrestling, but stay off the cage. Because Jamey-Lyn Horth's takedown defense isn't that good. It should not look as good as it did. Second note I'll make about Miranda Maverick, her hands looked great. Her hands looked great. The second round, she had almost no success wrestling. Third round, she was striking for a lot longer. And her striking looked good. She was winning the striking exchanges. And Jamey-Lyn Horth was supposed to be the better striker. So Miranda Maverick was winning the striking exchanges. Then as soon as Jamey got comfortable, then she lowered her level, shot a takedown, got it nice and clean, and then dominated from there. So we need to see more of that. No more desperate cage wrestling. Trust the hands. Shoot in the middle of the octagon. Miranda Maverick got it done. 2-1. It was nerve-wracking, but it was done. And we're fine. First leg of safety parlay in the bag at this point in the night. Then we had a pretty straightforward fight, but a very good fight, an excellent fight, a fun fight. We had Miles Johns taking on Felipe Lima. This was a back-and-forth war. I was surprised to see that not one single judge gave Miles Johns one round. It was 30-27 across the board. That was surprising. Miles Johns had some success. There was some wrestling there. There was some bombing away there. There was some success on the Miles side. If you see those scorecards and you think this was absolute domination, it was not. It was a really fun back-and-forth scrap that the judges just happened to agree on. And it was exactly what I broke down. It was Felipe being younger, faster, more athletic, flashier, and it was Miles Johns being insanely tough and durable. So he's tough. He took a little bit of a beating, but then he came forward, shot a takedown, picked it up, slammed it down, worked, was bombing away. This was a very, very good fight. It told us a couple things. One, Miles Johns has dog in him. We knew that, but we got to see it again. And two, so does Felipe Lima. Because there were moments in this fight where he could have gotten frustrated, could have quit, or could have taken the easy road out, and he didn't. So Felipe Lima is good, much better than I was giving him credit for. And hopefully the people that were insisting Felipe Lima should have been a 10-1 dog give Miles Johns some credit. Because this is a guy who went out there, fought his ass off, was a ton of fun, put on a show, and stayed tough the whole time. Then we had Sean Woodson with the surprise knockout. This right here is why I lost money on the night. Right here. I had a half of a unit on Fernando Padilla. But keep in mind, I lost $18. Okay? $18. Last week I made like $300. I lost $18. A unit for me is $100. So that's how I'm talking. Fernando Padilla, I had a half a unit on win inside the distance, decision, no action. And what that bet meant is if Fernando Padilla finished Sean Woodson, my bet would hit. If he didn't finish Sean Woodson and this fight went to a decision, I just get a full refund. So I had half a unit. I lost 0.18 units. And this bet didn't hit because all of a sudden Sean Woodson had power. All of a sudden Sean Woodson had power. Fernando Padilla is a pretty tough, durable guy. And he came in a little too hot, a little too aggressive. And Sean Woodson just lit him up. That finishing exchange was clean. He lit his ass up and finished him. And it made it look like Sean Woodson has power for days. And obviously, there was some power there. And he has finishes before. But if you run through his fight history and you watch his fights, it's a lot of touch, go, move, touch, go, move, stay on the outside, touch, go, move. It's a lot of that. And it looked like we were going to get that in this fight. And then we didn't. We got that insane, I believe it was an uppercut that kicked off that combination that got it done. And there's that ridiculously long neck just doing everything possible to keep that head up, and it couldn't do it. Sean Woodson got it done, and he has a sneaky good record right now. This guy is just quietly beating a ton of people in this division. It's absolutely insane what he's doing at 145 pounds. Just winning. Some of the fights are closer than they should be, but he is winning these fights quietly. So good for Sean Woodson, and I don't know how much longer he can fly under the radar. Then we had a Joel Alvarez fight. He got taken down almost immediately. Right, a couple of exchanges. Drakkar got cracked, said, I'm done with this. Shot a takedown, got it. No problems whatsoever. And actually, I was a little worried. I had Joel Alvarez in a parlay with the over on the first fight, so that hit. That parlay hit. It was coming down to this fight, and I was a little nervous. When Drakkar got that takedown, I was like, here we go. Joel Alvarez having no idea how to defend a takedown if Drakkar just stays safe. But it didn't matter because Joel Alvarez stood up, landed a beautiful combination, kneed him against the cage, had Drakkar 90% knocked out from the knee, and then guillotined him. He finished him twice. He finished him twice in this fight, and it looked great. I mean, Joel Alvarez is seemingly the real deal. He does need to button up the takedown defense. He has to. Because eventually somebody's going to take him down that can stay safe on the ground, right? Somebody's going to take him down that can keep their elbows in, not worried about getting submitted, and win this fight. So if Joel works on that takedown defense, can keep fights standing whenever he wants, well, now we know he's got phenomenal striking. We always knew he had great jiu-jitsu, but if he can keep fights standing, then he can decide where he wants it to go or not go. Joel Alvarez looks absolutely phenomenal. He got this done. I was a person talking about, I picked Joel, obviously. I parlayed him. But I was somebody talking about Drakkar Klose a lot better than people give him credit for. And I still believe that statement, but it didn't look like it. He made Drakkar Klose look terrible. That's how good Joel Alvarez looked. Then we had the featured prelim of the evening. Michael Johnson taking on Ottman Vitor. This was a good old-fashioned slug fight. We had two old dudes who are kind of chinny that were just planting their feet and bombing away as hard as they could. That's what this fight was. Start to finish. It was two old dudes trying to knock each other out. It was very clear Michael Johnson was the better overall fighter, but I don't think there was a doubt in anybody's mind that that was the case. Michael Johnson's fought a who's who of this division. He's been around forever. He's always been a very skilled fighter. He's just getting older, slowing down a little bit. He's had some horrific knockout. And all of a sudden, he's just biting down and bombing away. I expected Michael Johnson to dance around. I expected him to be what Davey Grant was earlier in the night. Just be the Energizer Bunny. Boom, 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 move. Boom, 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 move. Boom, 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 move. But that's not what we got. They were both bombing away, and ultimately he ended up connecting, got it done. And good for Michael Johnson. This is a guy that's been around forever, and I'm glad that he got this win. That's now 2 wins in a row for him. And no, they're not the greatest wins over the highest level of competition, but this is a guy who is older, has been through some wars, and he has been around forever. He's earned a couple of easier type fights. Because typically what the UFC does is they feed you to killers, they use you up, they wear you out, they destroy your name, and then they send you off into the sunset with injuries and no insurance. That's typically how this goes down. So luckily, at 38 years old, Michael Johnson's still able to get some wins, make some money, and look good doing it. So good for him. Ottman Vitor needs to be done. That's 3 knockout losses in a row. He hasn't won a fight in like 5 years. Then we had the main card opener. Your minus 1,000 king in Navajo Sterling. Your huge favorite, Navajo Sterling. Your UFC debut that you guys insisted this guy's the real deal. He's ready. Bet Sam wouldn't shut the fuck up about Navajo Sterling. All I had to hear from Betsy, he's DMing me privately, sending me messages. Angelo, he's ready. Navajo Sterling's ready. I'm telling you, Navajo Sterling is ready. Did he look ready to you? Did this look like a minus 1,000 favorite? Because I don't think so. Here's the exact message I got from BetSam. Take my word. Then it says with a grain of salt. But let's leave that out for dramatic purposes. if you will, but Navajo has been grinding his ass off grappling for this fight, and I believe he smokes and submits. He is live. At this point in time, he was a 5-1 favorite. He closed as a 10-1 favorite, and this fight was close. This should have been a 29-28 across the board. Navajo won the first round, lost the second, won the third. But frankly, this was set up to be a beating. They set this up. They wanted Navajo to smoke Tuco-Tucos. And that's not what you got. You got a guy who is a very good kickboxer, as we saw, who still cannot defend a takedown. He cannot defend a takedown. The half-ass takedown attempts worked. On the ground, he's a little squirrely, whatever. But we have a guy who can't strike in Tuco-Tucos. Terrible striker. Who has terrible takedowns. And he was having some success striking, and he did have success wrestling. Navajo Sterling is not the prospect you think he is, at least not yet. And that's fine. He only had 5 professional fights coming into this. He only had 5 professional fights. Think about that. Fighting in the largest promotion on planet Earth with only 5 fights. And yeah, we've seen some of that with Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira was able to do it. But that was different. Alex Pereira was a different breed. There was a plot line with Israel Adesanya. Alex Pereira was different. And now they're just trying to recreate that success. I do not think Navajo Sterling is ready. Yeah, he beat this guy in a decision. He was supposed to blow through him, and that's not what we got. They need to be very careful matching him up because there's a couple of people at 205 that actually can wrestle, that can come forward, work in a takedown or two. And those people are going to give Navajo Sterling a big, big problem. But yes, he got it done. All your parlays with the minus 1,000 hit. But this is not your king. I would be very careful in his next matchup. Then we had what was probably the only bad scorecard on the night. I will say the judges overall in Tampa were pretty spot on. All those close decisions I agreed with. I thought the judging was solid. I didn't feel like anybody got screwed. Adrian Yanez didn't get screwed either. But there was a 30-27 fight card, and that was crazy. The second round was one of the clearest rounds in the fight. In the second round, right off the rip, Adrian Yanez has Daniel Marcos rocked. Has him rocked, like stumbling back. And then he pieces him up the rest of that round. Round 2 was unbelievably clear. So for a judge to have watched round 2 and was like, nah, Daniel Marcos won that round, is a problem. And I'm not going to say that that judge sucks because that judge judged other fights this night and other fights were correct. So what I think it might be, I'll talk about this fight in a second. What I think it might be is in the first round, Daniel Marcos had Adrian Yanez rocked and it set the tone for the fight. It really felt like Daniel Marcos was about to blow through this dude because he had him rocked early, had some success early. And that's your first impression of what's going on in this fight. And then even though Yanez took over in the second, and even though Yanez was clearly the faster, cleaner striker, but he was getting hit with the harder punches on the exits, that's all the commentators could talk about is that Yanez isn't defending himself on the way out. But I think what happens sometimes, it certainly had to have happened with this judge, but I think what happens sometimes is what you see in the first minute of this fight, if it's meaningful, sets the tone for the rest of the fight. So then you go into the second round being like, yeah, this guy's going to win. He almost finished him the first. He's going to win here. You go into the third round. Yeah, he's already almost beat him, but we'll be fine. And so that's what you have in your head. Because Daniel had some early success in the first. Yanez had some early success in the second. Took over the rest of the second. Yanez was winning the third. He was taken down a couple of times. No damage was done. He popped back up. The biggest criticism on Yanez, people are railroading him in Discord, railroading him online, and I understand it, is that with 1 minute left, Yanez manages to stand up. Relatively close round, right? Adrian was the much better striker in the third round. The round third? Well, what country am I from? In the third round, Adrian was the much better striker. Wasn't even close. To the point where Daniel Marcos, the striker, the undefeated striker, turned into a grappler. So he's just praying and biting, hoping on a prayer, trying to get some takedowns. And he got a couple of takedowns. Adrian works his way back up. 1 minute left in a very close round. Anybody can steal this round. And Adrian Yanez standing where he's had all the success. And Daniel Marcos is literally turning his back and running away. Literally running away. And instead of just throwing kicks and bombing away and making Daniel Marcos look like the bitch that he's being a bitch. He is running away in a fight. And I get it. A lot of you pick Daniel Marcos and he's the next big. But like, be a human being for a second. Be objective. Your guy won the fight. But you can admit he was being a bitch, right? He turned his back and was running away. You can admit that. Defending that is crazy. There were people in the Discord immediately. I knew Daniel Marcos would win. Yanez sucks. What? One of these guys was running away in fear. One of them. And it wasn't the guy that you just said sucked. Be real. Be normal. Being normal is it's not hard to look at something and be like, oh, I was wrong. Or be like, oh, boy, I got away with that one. That's not crazy. So to pretend that Daniel Marcos like dominated this fight is insane. So we got 1 minute left. Daniel Marcos is running away, turns his back, running away, avoiding contact at all costs. And Yanez is like, you see him like stepping, but he's not letting his hands go. And if he did let his hands go, he probably could have won this fight. Keep in mind, there was one idiot that did a 30-27. So that judge is out. There's the third judge that Yanez needed to convince. And maybe there was no way to convince that judge. We'll never know. But maybe a couple extra punches while Orange Hair is running away could have stole that fight. Maybe. We'll never know. And as annoying as it is for us, for Jacob, who bet a bunch of money on him, it'll haunt Adrian Yanez. He's going to watch that fight back, and he's just going to haunt him. Should have done this, should have done that. And it is what it is. They were both tired. It was a great performance. Way closer than anybody thought. Dude, the guy closed at like a plus 300 underdog. Anybody who had a plus 3.5 bet absolutely cashed that bet. Adrian Yanez, great performance. This much more in the last minute would have got it done. Only one of these men ran away scared, and it wasn't him. Then we had quite the turn of events in the Vitor Petrino, Dustin Jacoby fight. It was a pretty straightforward fight for the most part. Vitor Petrino is just a physical specimen of a man. He's big, he's strong, he's fast, he's athletic. And that's what we saw. We saw a bigger, stronger, faster, more athletic guy winning a fight. That's what we saw for 90% of this fight. Vitor was having the cleaner strikes, was landing big, was super fast. He was doing whatever he wanted to do. He looked very comfortable. In my notes, as I watch these fights, I take notes. So that next time I break down the fighter, I'll look at my notes and then I'll watch the tape. I trust my in-the-moment thoughts and notes way more than rewatching tape. Because when you rewatch tape, you already know the results. And if you know the results while you're watching a fight, it 100% will skew your view on those fights. So while I'm watching, as long as I have the ability to take notes, I will take notes. And my notes for this fight, the whole time, up until the knockout, was how good Vitor Petrino's striking looked and how much confidence he had. He had a ton of confidence, and his striking looked very good. And then Dustin Jacoby sat on a big one. Vitor was hearing the boos, was playing into it, got overly excited, started charging forward. Not a lot of time left on the clock, like a minute and a half left, and was just swinging hard, thinking he was going to get it done, showcasing a little bit. Boom. Just a huge, beautiful right hand. You could see it on the left, and on the right is what happened immediately after. The guy just went limp, done, one-punch knockout, absolutely done. And that's a problem. That's a problem. Because now we're at a point where Vitor Petrino might be a fraud. I went on this whole thing saying getting submitted by Anthony Smith doesn't make you a fraud. And even this fight doesn't. Dustin Jacoby was a highly ranked professional kickboxer for a very long time, and Vitor Petrino was outstriking him for more than 2/3 of a fist fight. But then he ate the big one. So I still don't think Vitor is a quote-unquote fraud, because if all he did was try to get his win and just play it cool for another minute and a half, he does get his win. And he looks good. And people talk about he's back. But he didn't. He got aggressive. He listened to the people in the stands, wanted to put on a show. Boom. Knocked out cold. Sometimes you just need to get your win, especially if you're coming off a loss, especially if you're early in your career. Just get the win. Who cares if they boo? Get the win. Winning is ultimately the only thing that matters. And I get it. It's a weird sport where you have to win to make money, and you also need fans to make money. But at a certain point, winning is undeniable. It is also half of your money. If you guys don't know how fighters get paid, they get half their money to fight, and then the other half if they win. I don't know Vitor's pay. Let's say he's getting 50 grand to fight and another 50 if he wins. That means he made half the amount of money that he could have, because with a minute and a half left, he got a little too overzealous. And that pay structure is set up that way to encourage fighters to try to win. That's why it's set up that way. Go out there, get your win bonus, fight your ass off. That's why they do fight of the night bonuses as well. Go out there and we'll give you a fight of the night bonus. But it's kind of a shitty pay structure. It's kind of messed up that the difference between half your money and all of your money is maybe one mistake. That's actually kind of crazy. But either way, Vitor Petrino blew it. I think he heard the audience, got a little too over-aggressive. And even in the post-fight interview with Dustin Jacoby, he said, I heard the boos. That was the game plan. Just play it cool. Be safe. Take your time. Listen, I get it. You won the fight. The game plan was, hey, get pushed around for 2.5 rounds and then you'll find your moment. No. Of course, some of the game plan was be patient, but I guarantee it was the first round. He'll slow down. It wasn't also the second round and half the third. The game plan wasn't lose decisively the entire time and then land one big punch with a minute and a half left. That wasn't the game plan. So he exaggerated that just a smidge. Then we had the second half of the safety parlay. This was a good chunk of the fight right here. Manel Kape got blasted in the dick 3 times. 3, like good shots too, not fake one. Blasted directly in the nuts 3 times. The third time, which was this one, you could see the foot hit the inside of the thigh, went under, like behind the cup, and then smacked the nuts. So this was a big piece of the fight. This was the other big piece of the fight. Just Manel Kape absolutely lighting up Bruno Silva. At no point in this fight, outside of the last 2 minutes, where Bruno was just literally swinging like a windmill, Michael Bisping said he did a pirouette because he swung so hard he spun himself around like a toddler. At no point outside of that did this fight even seem close. I mean, Manel Kape put on a masterclass. He was lightning fast. He was clearly the more technical striker, and he was hitting hard as hell. He did whatever he wanted to. Everybody talked about, I obviously was insanely confident in Manel Kape, hence the safety parlay. But everybody was talking about, oh, but look what he did in his last fight. He only landed 20 significant strikes. That's because he was fighting a top-notch wrestler, and he was worried if I do anything, this dude's going to shoot wild takedowns. That's not what we got here. We got a Manel Kape that wasn't afraid of a damn thing. He was letting his hands go. He was landing clean, defending takedowns. This is the best Manel Kape has ever looked. And this is in a division that has nothing at the top. So Manel Kape did a great job making a case for a title shot. Problem for him, he's not beating Pantoja. He's not going to beat Pantoja. We just saw Pantoja eat ridiculous knees from Kai Asakura. And Manel Kape's footwork and his speed were wildly impressive here. But I think Pantoja just pushes him up against the cage, takes him down, and then goes from there. But this is the best version of Manel Kape we've ever seen. I actually want to see another performance like this before a title shot, because if I see another one of these, let's say if he did something like this to a Brandon Royval or Brandon Moreno, then it's like, oh my God, how good is Manel Kape? But he did it to a Bruno Silva, who's not really technical, but is just sort of a tough brawler. But Manel Kape looked absolutely phenomenal. I was so happy I had him in the safety parlay. I didn't have to worry about it one bit. Then we had another come-from-behind victory from an aging vet. Cub Swanson and Dustin Jacoby basically had the same fight. We're losing the majority of the fight, and then boom, landed a big shot and got it done. But this was a little different because Cub Swanson looked good early. Cub Swanson was landing clean early. His hands were at his hips, just whoop, boom, boom, whoop, boom, boom. Like he's got that weird like lunge forward, throw a shot from your hip style, and it was working for him. He was landing big. He was landing clean. But then he started to show his age. He was slowing down. Billy Quarantillo was taking over. Billy was landing big shots, and I was like, shit, Cub's going to get knocked out. I had a quarter of a unit on this fight goes to a decision. And this is another fight. I was not super close. There was about 1.5 minutes into the third round, so I needed 3.5 more minutes to go. But the reality is, this was kind of back and forth, but it felt very much like Billy took over to the point where I got up and I walked away from the TV. This was my last bet. This was the difference between losing $18 or making 10. Something like that. It was a difference between green and black, like just green and red. Sorry. It was right there. Came down to this stupid, does this fight go to a decision bet? First round was dicey because Cub had some early success, and I was like, uh-oh. But then Billy very much took over, and Cub was in trouble. Second round was kind of sloppy, a little bit of wrestling, grappling, some success on both sides. Third round, out of nowhere, boom, got it done. And Billy Quarantillo is not looking good lately. He just has not looked good lately. Yusuf Zalal sparked him, but it was like, all right, that's the new version of Yusuf Zalal. To get beat up like this, and I love Cub Swanson, so I don't want this to sound insulting, but to get beat up like this by a 41-year-old man is not great. That's not like, I get Billy's not young. He's 36, though. That's a 5-year difference. And 5 years between 20 and 25, not that huge. Even 25 and 30, not that big. 36 to 41, that is a very dramatic 5 years. So Billy Quarantillo needs to look at his career as well, because all the talk is around, is Cub Swanson going to retire or not? And even he said, I don't know. I told my wife I probably will. I probably should, but I don't know. And you might as well retire like this. I mean, you just knock this dude out. But great fight overall. I know he was a lot of people's favorite underdog for the week, so congratulations to you. Wish I didn't place that stupid $25 bet, and we'd be good. And then we had the main event of the evening. Joaquin Buckley smoked Colby Covington. Listen, Colby Covington had like this much success. He had a couple of takedowns, decent control on top. But the feet, it wasn't even remotely close. I mean, Joaquin Buckley was just lighting Colby Covington up on the feet. Just lit him up on the feet. The confidence in their body language, like the differences between these two guys was crazy. Joaquin Buckley's bouncing around, making stuff happen. Goes to his corner. His corner's like, he took you down, but you hurt him. You're good. Keep doing what you're doing. Colby Covington's corner, which was Chael Sonnen, who I absolutely love, they were like just making shit up. You did a good job. Hey, the kicks look good. Hey, he doesn't like when you pressure him. He doesn't like when you pressure him. He's lighting Colby up. The only success Colby had was just diving, crotch sniffing, hanging on for dear life. Got it to the ground, and then Joaquin Buckley somehow gets a triangle in there. It slips off. They end up rolling around, and then the referee stops the fight to have the doctor look at the cut, and they stop this fight ultimately because of a cut. Her exact words were, he's going to lose his eyelid. And this is a real cut that was caused by a punch or a knee. It wasn't an eye poke. It wasn't an accidental headbutt. This was Joaquin Buckley punching Colby Covington very hard. And the fall off of Colby Covington needs to be studied. Here's your Colby Covington timeline. Colby Covington, very good wrestler in college. And when he came out of college, American Top Team was literally recruiting high-level wrestlers. They got Bubba Jenkins. They got Kobe. They were recruiting high-level wrestlers. Their whole thing was, if we bring in these very high-level wrestlers, we could either turn them into superstars, or if we can't, then we still have phenomenal training partners for the rest of the gym. It was a great strategy, and it paid off. So now he's at American Top Team. I'm assuming they're giving him some money. He's living for free, all those things, right? They're investing in somebody who's never fought before, but they're trying to turn him into something. American Top Team gets him to the pit, like gets him title shots, gets him to the pinnacle, gets him into a couple of all-time wars with Kamaru Usman. American Top Team gets him his paydays, builds him into somebody He was the interim champion. I think he was at American Top Team still when he was the interim champion. Like, they helped build him. They did build him. He was friends with Jorge Masvidal, best friends with Dustin Poirier, great training partners, all the things. But while Colby's getting more and more famous, he's building a persona. And the persona is just, like America, fuck everybody else. And that was fine when it was that. But then it expanded to fuck my teammates, fuck this person. It was him versus everybody. And that's when things really came apart at the seams. It was one thing when it was very clearly a character and you're insulting outsiders. But when you start insulting insiders at a gym like that, that's not going to go well. So then he leaves American Top Team. He goes to MMA Masters. He is by far the best, most accomplished person in that gym. Not even remotely close. Like, nobody there was anywhere near as good, successful, talented, nothing. So then he goes to that gym. Clearly top dog. Has some success. He beats Jorge Masvidal when they fight. But keep in mind, he didn't need to get any better to beat Jorge. He had been training with him for years. He could just out-wrestle him, outwork him, was in great shape. So then that earns him a title shot, gets his ass kicked. Just things didn't go well for Colby Covington. Colby Covington's fall off is a thing for the ages. Smokes Tyron Woodley. Gets a title shot against Kamaru Usman. Smokes Jorge Masvidal. Gets a title shot against Leon Edwards. Looks god-awful. Comes back somewhat short notice. Gets this main event. Looks god-awful again. He looks old. He looks slow. It's not as if he's the same old Colby Covington with the sports passing him by. He's slow. He's not as busy. He's not shooting as many takedowns. I don't know what the deal is. He's certainly not improving. His striking looked horrific. So Colby Covington's got to be done. Or he's going to be fighting like fight night mid cards, fight night main cards, pay-per-view undercards. Like, the fall off is crazy. Like, there's been plenty of people who worked their way to a title shot, then hit a skid. But this is like, go watch him even in the loss to Kamaru Usman versus the loss to Leon Edwards was crazy. Let alone the win over Jorge Masvidal to this loss. Crazy fall off for him, but let's talk about Joaquin Buckley. He looked phenomenal. Joaquin Buckley at welterweight looks unbelievable. He's calm. He's composed. He was always fast. He always hit hard. And then dropping weight classes didn't affect that in the slightest. He doesn't look sucked out. His cardio doesn't seem to be an issue. Yeah, he got taken down. Big deal. He didn't worry about it. He wasn't panicked. He worked his way back up. Joaquin Buckley is the real deal at this weight class. And I'm convinced that if he fought Ian Gary, which is who he was supposed to fight, I think he was going to beat Ian Gary. Especially, we saw Ian Gary do literally nothing against Shavkat. Nothing. All he did was defend takedowns against the cage, never let his hands go. Well, Joaquin's let his hands go. Moves forward. Fast, clean, accurate. I think he would have beat Ian Gary. Guys, that's the recap. Let me know what you thought of this event. It honestly felt like a spectacular event. Ton of really good, fun fights. Lots of decisions, but plenty of underdogs. Lots of dog fights. Overall, UFC Tampa was great. But it can't stop there. We're moving on to UFC Vegas 101. But before we go to UFC Vegas 101, let me give you $50. Go to WeWantPicks.com/bets. Sign up with any one of our affiliate partners using the links. Make a deposit, and we send you $50 as a thank you. They're going to pay me. I'll slice off some of that money, and I'll give it right back to you. Here's a look at that safety parlay. And the reason I'm showing you this is A, I'm very proud of it, and B, we've already got some bets cooking for UFC Vegas 101. I've hit 9 of the last 10 safety parlays. That is a streak. That is an all-time streak. 69% ROI from one single bet. And you could take that 69% ROI. You can take that one single bet, and you can apply it to UFC Vegas 101. This fight's in a little bit, but I've already got 4 bets on the board with 3 units to go. We've already got all the picks, all the breakdowns, everything on the website for you. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member. It's freaking $10. $10. 10. Okay, is that clear enough? $10. And depending when you sign up, you're going to get UFC Vegas 101, UFC Vegas 311. You're going to get everything you could ever want or need heading into a fight weekend. The success that we've been having is absolutely unmatched. And the final things out of my mouth are use the data analyzer. Get the research ahead of time. Use this time Beat the casuals. And I actually hate people using casual. But if you use this time to get ahead on the research, to look at the raw notes, use the tools, you will beat the lines. And if you're using a sportsbook, you're like, hey, I don't see UFC Vegas 101 bets. We use Bet Online. They have every single bet for UFC Vegas 101. The whole card is ready to go. They also have UFC 311, UFC 312. They've got a whole bunch of future cards built out. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. It's freaking $10. We're filming vlogs. We're doing all the things. Here's the address if you want to send something for the vlog. Here's a thumbnail for the last vlog. This was a really fun one. Do all the things. We appreciate you. You're going to get a video from me every single week. Enjoy your holidays. See you next time.